Imagine the stillness of the dead of night. The world outside is a landscape of shadows, and the silence is so profound you can almost hear it. The clock ticks past midnight, and then, sometime between 3 and 4 in the morning, you find yourself suddenly awake. There is no apparent reason. Perhaps it was the ghost of a dream you cannot recall, a sudden chill that has nothing to do with the temperature, or simply a deep, unsettling feeling that you are not alone. This is the time often called the witching hour, a name that ignites a primal fear within us. But what is it about this specific window of time that has, for centuries, been so intimately linked with the supernatural and the unknown? The roots of the witching hour dig deep into the soil of folklore and religious tradition. In the history of Europe, particularly during the Middle Ages, the hours between 3 and 4 in the morning were believed to be a period when the powers of witches, demons, and spirits were at their absolute peak. This belief was born from a potent mixture of superstition and religious symbolism. Within Christian tradition, 3 o'clock in the afternoon is held as the sacred hour of Christ's death, a moment representing sacrifice and divine grace. In stark contrast, 3 o'clock in the morning, its darkened version, was thought to be a time when the forces of evil reigned supreme. The world was considered to be at its most vulnerable, the veil separating our physical realm from the spiritual one, worn impossibly thin. It was during this hour, legends claim, that witches gathered to perform their most sacred rituals and summon entities from beyond. It was a time when supernatural beings were said to wander the earth, their unseen eyes searching for the living. The term witching hour itself did not appear in English texts until the 18th century, but the fear of nighttime magic is an ancient one, with echoes in folklore from every corner of the globe. In Scandinavian tradition, for instance, the hour of the wolf, the final, deep darkness just before the dawn, was said to be when the most deaths occurred, and when nightmares held their most terrifying power. But why do so many of us still report waking at this time, feeling a sense of dread? While folklore offers us tales of the supernatural, science provides another perspective. Sleep researchers have noted that these early morning hours are a unique stage in our sleep cycle. Our core body temperature is at its lowest, our blood pressure dips, and REM sleep, the phase responsible for our most vivid and intense dreams, is most active. This confluence of biological factors makes us more susceptible to waking, often feeling disoriented. It is also when we are most likely to experience sleep paralysis, that terrifying state where the mind is awake but the body cannot move, sometimes accompanied by hallucinations or the crushing sense of a malevolent presence in the room. These deeply unsettling physical sensations may have been the very fuel for the ancient stories of the witching hour and for the tales of the so-called call from beyond. In countless cultures, it is believed that spirits or departed loved ones attempt to make contact during these hours, breaking through in our dreams or pulling us from our sleep. People have reported hearing their names whispered in an empty room, seeing shadowy figures standing at the foot of their bed, or feeling a sudden bone-deep chill. These are the experiences that, over centuries, were woven into the myths of midnight hauntings and spectral visitations. And so, as the clock creeps toward 3 in the morning, as the line between sleep and wakefulness begins to blur, it is easy to understand why the witching hour has so powerfully captured our collective imagination, a time when the ordinary world we know and the extraordinary one we fear might just meet. But what if the voice you hear is not from another world, but from our own? A voice so dangerous, so potent, that entire societies have tried to extinguish it? This is the story of the voice that should not speak. Throughout human history, this concept of a forbidden voice has appeared in many forms. The heretic whispering dissent against the church, the dissident challenging a brutal regime, the marginalized individual demanding to be seen in a world that would prefer they remain invisible. What truly defines a voice that should not speak, and why have so many fought to suppress it? At its core, this forbidden voice is any form of expression that threatens an established power,
shatters a social norm, or challenges a deeply held belief. In ancient Athens, the philosopher Socrates was condemned to die for corrupting the youth with his relentless questions. His pursuit of truth was a direct threat to the status quo, making his a voice that the authorities decided must be silenced forever. Centuries later, in the Middle Ages, figures like Galileo Galilei were forced to recant their scientific discoveries under threat from the Inquisition. His observation that the earth revolved around the sun clashed with church doctrine, transforming his scientific truth into a dangerous heresy. These are not mere relics of a distant past. The echo of these silenced voices carries through to our modern world. In the 20th century, the powerful voice of Martin Luther King Jr., advocating for civil rights and racial equality, was met with state-sponsored surveillance, hostility, and ultimately, fatal violence. His unwavering insistence on justice was seen as a profound disruption by those invested in a system of segregation and hate. Even today, activists, journalists, and ordinary citizens across the globe face censorship, imprisonment, or worse, for daring to speak truths that those in power find inconvenient.
But the voice that should not speak is not always a lone dissenter. Sometimes it belongs to an entire people, whose experiences and perspectives are systematically erased. Consider the silencing of indigenous languages and cultures through the brutal process of colonization, or the long suppression of women's voices in deeply patriarchal societies. In each of these cases, the simple act of speaking up, of writing, of singing, of telling one's own story becomes a revolutionary act. The methods used to enforce this silence are as varied as history itself: censorship, exile, imprisonment, and even execution. Yet not all silencing is so overt. Sometimes it is subtle, a dismissive roll of the eyes, a deliberate refusal to listen, the quiet invalidation of someone's experience. Sometimes it is encoded in the very laws and social customs that govern our lives, discouraging dissent before it can even be spoken. And yet, despite every obstacle, the voice that should not speak persists. It finds new channels to be heard through underground art, through coded messages, through digital platforms that defy the censor's grasp. Each time a forbidden voice rises, it exposes the fault lines of power, challenges our most comfortable assumptions, and invites us to reconsider which voices we choose to value and which we choose to ignore. History teaches us a sobering lesson. The voices deemed most dangerous are often the ones we most need to hear. They expand our understanding of the world, they inspire progress, and remind us that silence, whether it is enforced or voluntary, can be as powerful and as telling as any spoken word. This persistence is the very heart of a haunting. For anyone who has ever felt the unnerving sensation of being watched in an empty house, or heard the sound of footsteps on the floor above when no one is there, you know that these experiences are rarely a singular event. Instead, they become a pattern, an unyielding presence that operates with an almost mathematical consistency. What is it that makes a haunting truly relentless? It is not merely the frequency of the strange occurrences, but the chilling way in which these events escalate. At first, the phenomena might be subtle, a misplaced set of keys, or a cold spot that drifts through a room. But as the days and weeks wear on, the activity often grows bolder. Doors might slam shut at the same time each night, lights might flicker in a predictable sequence, or electronic devices may power on and off with an eerie, deliberate precision. It is as if the entity is learning, testing, and determined to be noticed, to wear down the psychological resistance of those who inhabit the space. This is where the numbers game begins. For decades, paranormal investigators and researchers have meticulously tracked the patterns behind reported hauntings, recording every incident to identify correlations and timelines. In some notoriously haunted locations, for example, activity is said to peak at exactly 3 a.m., the aforementioned witching hour. The recurrence feels anything but random. It is as if the haunting is adhering to its own dark schedule, challenging us to find meaning in its repetition. Numbers also play a crucial role in the psychology of those being haunted.
Imagine waking at the exact same time every night, say 2:47 a.m., for weeks on end, always to the same unexplained sound. The mind begins to anticipate the terror. Anxiety builds in the hours leading up to the event, and the cycle becomes a self-perpetuating engine of fear. This anticipation can make even the most natural occurrences feel supernatural, blurring the fragile line between reality and suggestion. There is also a profound significance in the number of witnesses. When multiple people experience the same phenomenon, for instance, when 3 members of a family all see the same shadowy figure in a hallway, the credibility of the event and the fear it generates multiplies exponentially. Investigators often use these shared experiences to validate claims, carefully documenting the number of incidents, the specific times they occur, and how many people were present. This data-driven approach is an attempt to distinguish between isolated psychological events and patterns that seem to defy all rational explanation. Even the very nature of hauntings can be categorized by their repetition. Residual hauntings, for example, are believed to be a psychic imprint on a location, an event that plays out over and over again like a spectral recording. The same footsteps, the same slamming door, at the same set intervals for eternity. Consider the most basic evidence of our existence in a space, the shadow we cast, the echo we create. Shadows are our silent companions, following us everywhere, yet we rarely consider what they truly represent. A shadow, in its simplest form, is created when an object blocks the path of light. Its sharpness and its size are dictated by the angle and intensity of the light source. Under the harsh light of the midday sun, your shadow is small and clings to your feet. But as the sun begins to set, that same shadow stretches out, growing long and distorted. It becomes a dark mirror of your form, a silent announcement of your presence. But shadows are not just passive byproducts of light. Artists and filmmakers use them deliberately to set a mood, to create a palpable sense of suspense, or to hint at unseen things lurking just out of frame. A shadow is more than an absence of light. It is a story waiting to be told. Now listen for the echoes, the auditory cousins of shadows. Just as an object blocks light, a solid surface reflects sound waves, creating an echo. When you shout into a canyon or a vast empty hall, your voice travels outward, bounces off a distant surface, and returns to you, slightly delayed. That delay is information. It tells us how far away the reflecting surface is. This principle, known as echolocation, is used by bats and dolphins to navigate and hunt in total darkness. They send out a sound and listen to the story the echo tells them about the world. But what of the unseen intruder? In the language of both shadows and echoes, something is always hidden from direct view. An intruder is anything that disrupts the expected flow of light or sound. Think of the classic cinematic trope, a shadow moving across a window curtain, betraying the presence of someone lurking outside. Or imagine a subtle, almost imperceptible change in the echo of a room, indicating an obstacle or a person where none should be. Modern technology has harnessed these very principles for our protection. Motion sensors often work by detecting changes in infrared light, essentially tracking the movement of heat shadows. Others use ultrasonic waves, listening for any unexpected echoes that would reveal the presence of an intruder. Even in the natural world, prey animals are acutely sensitive to a sudden shadow passing overhead or an unfamiliar echo in the trees, the telltale signs of a predator. In our daily lives, these subtle cues are constantly at play. They guide us, they warn us, and sometimes they terrify us by revealing the hidden layers of the world all around us. What happens when that unseen intruder is not a predator, but something else entirely? What is left in the aftermath of an event that defies all logic and explanation? In the wake of a vanishing, the atmosphere is thick with confusion, fear, and a creeping dread. Law enforcement may establish a command post, and search teams may comb the area, their faces etched with a weary resolve. But often, they find nothing. No footprints, no personal belongings, not a single clue to suggest what happened. The intensity of the search only serves to deepen the mystery. As days turn into weeks, hope begins to fade. The press conferences become less frequent. The massive search effort is gradually scaled back. The flyers, once plastered on every available surface, begin to curl and fade, their images becoming ghosts themselves. The community, once united by a sense of urgency, now struggles under the crushing weight of uncertainty. It is in this void of evidence that speculation and legend are born. Whispers begin to circulate. Some will say the area is cursed, recalling old stories of unexplained happenings from decades past. Others will theorize about secret experiments or otherworldly involvement, their ideas fueled by the complete and total absence of a rational explanation. People may move away, unable to bear the haunted feeling that now lingers in the air. To this day, such cases stand as some of our greatest unsolved mysteries. The aftermath leaves a permanent scar on a place, where everyday life is forever marked by an event that seemed to tear a hole in the fabric of reality, leaving behind only questions, theories, and the chilling memory of the day when people simply disappeared. In the shadowy corners of Japanese urban folklore, few tales are as chilling as the legend of Mama Plus One. This eerie story, whispered on playgrounds and shared in the dark corners of the internet, revolves around a mysterious phone call and a question that no one should ever answer. The legend begins simply. You are at home, perhaps alone, and the telephone rings. On the other end of the line, a woman's voice, gentle and soothing, asks a strange question. Do you want a mama? If you say no, the caller hangs up and the story ends. But if you say yes, she asks a second, more sinister question. Do you want Mama Plus One? This is where the nightmare truly begins.
According to the legend, if you answer yes to that second question, the consequences are immediate and terrifying. The next day, you will find not one, but two mothers in your home. They are identical in every way. They act the same, they cook the same meals, and they speak in the very same voice. There is just one problem. One of them is not your real mother. As the days pass, the doppelganger's presence becomes more menacing. Its smile is just a little too wide. Its affection feels a little too forced. The legend warns that if you cannot tell the difference, if you cannot identify and banish the false mother before it is too late, you will be taken away to the shadowy world from which it came, never to be seen again. Some versions of the tale add even more layers of psychological horror. The imposter might slowly turn the child against their real mother. Or worse, the two mothers might turn on each other, leaving the terrified child trapped in the middle, unsure of whom to trust. The story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of engaging with the unknown, especially when it arrives in the guise of something familiar and comforting. What makes this legend so deeply unsettling is its universality. The fear of losing a parent or of having the safety of your own home infiltrated by something pretending to belong is a primal anxiety we all share. Mama Plus One takes the sacred bond between a mother and child and twists it into a source of absolute terror. The legend also reflects broader themes in folklore, where shapeshifters and doppelgangers serve as the ultimate test of a person's ability to discern truth from deception. In our modern world, the story taps into our deepest anxieties about identity, trust, and the fragile boundary between reality and illusion. It has evolved with technology, moving from landlines to text messages and social media notifications, making the chilling question feel uncomfortably close to our own connected lives.
Ultimately, the legend of Mama Plus One endures because it reminds us that the greatest horrors do not always lurk in the darkness of the witching hour or in the silence of an empty room. Sometimes they call us on the phone, and they wear a familiar, loving face.